God.
It's better to feel. I always say that when people feel that they're aching, I say as long as that's come from exercise, then that's a good thing.
Yeah, no, it's a good feeling, but it's not very elegant, I have to say. But yeah, but no, it's so lovely to see so many of you on. Thanks so much for hopping on tonight. We're very lucky to have James Knight on with us, who is my personal trainer and has been for, I don't know, James, I mean, since I actually got going and actually came on calls, probably about 3 years now, start of lockdown, probably 2 years. So yeah, I've been working really closely with James.
Yeah, it seems like 3 years,
yeah. And yeah, James is a huge fan of our products and stuff. James was actually a PMD with the company, so knows our products inside and out, introduced to it through a nutritionist. So yeah, he knows our products inside out and has used them ever since. Why does that noise keep doing that? Is everyone muted? I keep getting weird noises. I'm just going to mute you, Elaine. There we go. But yeah, and I wanted to tonight within the Wellness Hub to talk a lot about exercise, because James, when we're on your calls, you talk so much about the types of exercise we should be doing for our stature, our age, and things like that, things that you see happening down at David Lloyd's. And I know how passionate you are about all of this. So I'm really keen to just hear your side of things for how to help point us women into the right forms of exercise for our optimal health and everything. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, just a little bit delayed. It might be my end.
Okay. Yeah, and then guys, if you want to ask questions for James, pop it in the chat box and we can have a bit of a Q&A at the end. But James, would you just give us a bit of a background to you, how you got into personal training and why you work predominantly with women and sort of where your passion lies with everything that you do?
God, it's done a full circle in many ways. I joined the military when I was like 16 because I literally didn't really know what I wanted. As most teenagers, I certainly didn't want to sit in school any longer. I think I left school to a round of applause. And I joined the military, and then I think it was there where I found myself. I was a really fit guy. I didn't have any other sort of talents or attributes. At the time, I didn't believe.
Well, I think you said
I was academic in any shape or form. Oh, hang on a minute. What's that? Is that me?
No, I don't know.
I don't know why.
I've muted that.
There's another Chloe on the call. Maybe you.
I've just muted. It's okay. Yeah, that's okay. Keep going, James. Sorry.
Yeah. So I left school and then went in the military, and it was there where I found my one talent, and that was fitness. And I actually realized that, and they sort of highlighted, because I was pretty much the top of my game in that area. I then became what's called a PTI, which is Army Physical Training Instructor. So after 3 years of selections, I eventually got in and then passed. And then I kind of found my natural, say, gift. I think we all have one or two gifts, and that was it. And I really enjoyed coaching. And then after so many years in the military, working with special forces and other sort of elite regiments, I ended up leaving because I decided enough. See, in the military, you get to the age of 23, 24, you feel like you're 100, your body's battered. So I decided to leave and study, and then I ended up becoming a trainer, a coach, whatever you want to call it. And I really, really enjoyed that sort of one-to-one, small group coaching side of things. And while I was working and running retreats and other various things, I was doing a lot of training people. I was doing so many hours a week just doing it. And over the last 20 years, I've done sort of wellness retreats all over the world, trained people all over the world. You know, I've been very heavily involved in this fitness game for a long time, nutritional element. I now have a clinic in Cardiff Bay where I'm working with patients coming up from the chiropractic area of our clinic. I'm working with people with multiple sclerosis and all types of injuries and diseases. It's just amazing. But I'm very passionate about it because I think it's the one sort of area that most of us choose to ignore blindly, whatever, stubbornness. It's actually probably the one area that, if anything, can make us the most happiest. it's funny that we seem to always steer clear of something that takes us out of our comfort zone, but often enough we step out of our comfort zone, we seem to achieve many things. It makes us the most happiest. So I've realized that working with so many people, just little consistent changes throughout their day, throughout their week, can compound into such dramatic results in every aspect of their life. But in actual fact, health and fitness, if you get that, if you focus on you and make yourself feel healthy, and what that will do is radiate such a more of a positive energy and attraction. You can't falsify it. You can't cut corners with it. And I tell all the ladies in my group, it's about loving yourself enough. Yeah. And if you don't love and respect yourself enough to do it, then really, if you've lost your self-respect, what else do you have?
Yeah.
It's totally true. So really, like I said, when I was saying I've been in a full circle, I worked obviously with the British Army, and then I skipped this big one now. I actually worked in professional rugby and sports science and strength and conditioning for a long time. So I was in professional rugby and international level rugby for 9 years, working with international rugby players, and now I'm working with women. So I think I'm going in the right direction. But no, I actually enjoy working with women more, because I gotta hand it to you guys. You're such a challenge, right? And I say that in a nice way. I've had to really educate myself, because women, obviously, we're all uniquely different, but I can't help but admire the opposite sex more than since working with you guys more personally over the last 10 years, and also working in that, or studying specifically within that sector, and understanding about menstrual cycle and understanding about menopause and all the other stuff that you guys have got to deal with just to be able to do what us men take for granted. And I think it's great now that in the industry that I'm in, over the last, say, decade, seeing such a complete transformation in women's mindsets. Actually, the allowance and acceptance in social structure of how everything is sort of now more level playing field. And I think that's absolutely fantastic. And actually seeing the way women are changing, the way they're training, the way they're looking at themselves, the way they hold themselves at the confidence level. It's just because the men have stepped aside and actually said, right, come on, there you go. This is for you now. And the education sector, everything that I'm doing in my industry now is all about female health and women's health and women's physicality. So I'm actually really excited about this. And actually now I know more than ever. And actually, to be honest with you, it's not me being an arrogant person, and it's certainly not me being someone who thinks he's not. But since being more educated in this, I actually feel I know more about menstrual cycles, more about menopause and training and nutrition menopause than most women do, because they're simply not told it.
Yeah. Well, you're not wrong there, because actually we've done a few talks about menopause, and the amount of women who, you go to the doctor, bearing in mind it happens to 50% of the population, pretty much guaranteed. You go to the doctor, they haven't studied it.
Yeah.
So these women are losing their minds. They're aging at a massive fast rate. Their hormones are flooring. Their moods are all over the place, probably affecting their bone health, their muscle health, everything. And doctors just suggest HRT. And so actually you say you probably know more about it than women do. Yeah. We're not given any support or nutritional, I don't feel anyway, as somebody sort of in her 40s. I haven't got people banging down my door with leaflets and flyers to help me manage and course my way through menopause when it happens. So actually someone like yourself that's working with women every day, and that was something I was keen to talk to you about, working with women as opposed to men. I think my excuse before I got started was, and I think you probably hear this a lot from women, is we are a bit of a caregiver. We lose ourselves. We lose ourselves in our kids, our work, our husbands, our families. And it's very hard for us to not have that guilt to take the time for us. And this is why I know that so many of the girls on the call love your workout, because it's so quick and it's so effective. It's 30 minutes a day and you're done and you can crack on before 7 a.m.
Yeah, I mean, let's look at the sort of NHS and the doctors in particular, and it's not me saying a negative. They're so busy now, it's ridiculous. Okay, they just don't have time. Secondly, yes, you're right, they don't study it, and that's quite shocking. They don't even study nutrition, right? It's like a basic couple of hours module, from my understanding, which in a sense, it's absolutely terrible, but and that's just the way it is. So we have to, all ourselves, we have to try and take a little bit of ownership of ourselves. Most of the time, nutrition is it's common sense. We kind of know what's good and what's bad, even with limited knowledge. It's generally, it is down to our own responsibility. But you're right with the menopause, and that we have women come into our clinic who have no idea what they're going through. They think they're going crazy. They honestly do. They sabotage themselves. They feel guilty. All these things that are going on. And honestly, I do strongly believe that menopause and menstrual cycles should be more focused on education in schools to prepare them for later on in life. But actually, it shouldn't be looked down upon as a negative. In actual fact, now with all the research, I like to teach my clients, my ladies, that's actually a transition into a new chapter, where although there's a lot of things going on hormonally, that yes, the hot flushes and maybe the mood swings, the lack of sleep and all this sort of stuff is a negative. There are things that you can do that probably the medical professions won't tell you because they don't know, or they do, but they haven't got time to tell you. And there's things that you can do as precautionary methods if you're pre-menopause that can significantly impact you right now from a physiological point of view, and really help strengthen your resolve throughout that and your resilience throughout the menopausal stage. But even if you are past that period, it doesn't mean in any shape or form that you can't significantly slow down the degeneration of aging process, which is also part of menopause as well, but post-menopause. There are so many things that you can do. And unfortunately, yet again, we are very much failed by the medical professionals in this area. But this is why it's exciting for me in this industry, because now there is ample amounts of years of research gone into this area, of which you can just apply some very basic, simple, consistent principles that can really help you. It's not the doom and gloom that it was. It really isn't.
So James, how does it how does it change then? So I know we've got a couple of girls on the call who are in their 20s, and we've also got people on the call who are probably menopausal or postmenopausal. So how does your exercise change, say from 20 through to 40 through to 60? What should we be focusing on? How does that affect our bodies as females? And because I know you say to me, like, I should be just doing weights, and I'm like, I don't like weights. How should we be exercising to help our hormone health, our bone health, and our all of that sort of thing? Does it change as you get older?
Well, there's a lot of stuff going on. I see people talking about hormone diets, and let's just count that out, right? Yes, with menopause, hormones, obviously there's things, estrogen and progesterone is the decline, and all that sort of happens, and where fat deposits are shifted from gluteofemoral to more oval, which is the stomach, from hips to belly shifts. But if you're in your 20s now, and it's not actually going to change, and you're probably going to think, oh God, really? The one thing really that any woman can do on here now, and I can back this up with so much research, if the one thing that any one of you can do now to change your physiology throughout life, doesn't matter what stage you're in, but if you're in your early 20s, I would definitely do this more than ever, would be to strength train. And that's not me being a weight training buff, it's just fact. Why? Well, let's look at from the early stages for most females. During puberty, most females from research tend to, due to body confidence, due to probably society today, but if we look back a few decades ago, it hasn't really changed. Girls tend to be less active in their early years as opposed to boys. And that's down to puberty, the consequences of the hormone changes and confidence as well, right? Just those things being in the PE kit and social sort of pressures. From that, then, that has a massive effect on bone formation, bone growth, muscular sort of growth, strength, and so forth. And that can transfer, if you're less active in your younger years, that combination of poor or low activity will transition throughout our lives in relation to bone mineral density, general bone longevity, bone health, structural strength, and muscle mass, right? Does that make sense? Because the earlier you are, if you're fit and you're strong in your young years, the more active you are. But then you look at a female's sort of transition through life, and this is not for everyone, but some will obviously have children, and then those sort of pressures take hold, and women will just give everything to that child, quite rightly so. That's how it goes. They give everything and then they forget themselves, they're less active, you know, and just generally they sort of give everything up, especially when it comes to sporting sort of activities in general. So again, this all has a role to play, whereas the men do tend to train, to exercise more. We've got testosterone, we want to use it. It's just the way it is. So in relation to that, if you look at the long sort of lifespan of a woman, it tends to go in fluctuations of activity levels. Men do go through this, and I could explain that, but let's not talk about men because it's about women today. But we got to look at that then. It does have an effect on our bone health, and bone health is getting drastically overlooked, and we do not want to neglect things like osteopenia and osteoporosis, because it's deadly serious. And I say that in openness, it is deadly serious. So that activity in our younger years has an effect. Now, when you're in your early 20s, up to around about your 30s, early 30s, your bone's still going through a form of growth and then into what's called a consolidation phase, where it's not going to really develop anymore. When you're in your 40s and above, we lose up to around about 1% of bone mineral density per year. And we lose around about 0.3 to 0.5% of our muscle mass per year. This is serious, right? It is a really steep decline. And unfortunately, due to hormonal declines in menopause, this speed of atrophy is drastically increased in females. So the greater chance of women getting things like osteopenia and osteoporosis in their postmenopausal years is quite high, especially if you couple that with low activity in the early years, because that has an effect on your bone growth. So what can you do that will help to maintain healthy muscles, as in maintain muscle mass and strength? And also, what can you do in your earlier years to make sure that you can increase bone mineral density? And I said that in your earlier years. You need to do things like impact sports, things which involve more jumping movements, so the impact of hitting the ground, because that has effect on bone growth and the stimulus. And also sort of resistance training and body weight work that can help to keep the muscles sort of strong and active. But what I'm finding more excitingly now is what they're seeing now in women in their 40s, 50s, 60s, because a lot more women are taking hold of dumbbells now and doing weight training. You see more women in the weights area than you see the men these days. So that's a great thing. Is if you want in your 40s and above, if you want to stop muscle loss, which I'm going to tell you why you want to stop that in a second, then the best way to do that is resistance training regularly, 2 to 3 to 4 times a week, because it's so true. There's not many sayings in the fitness industry that are true, but this one is: if you don't use it, you lose it, right? If any of you's ever had an operation before, I've had many because I'm a bit of a war dog. If you've got a lot of operations, you lose a lot of muscle mass very, very quickly because you're not using them. You don't move your arm for a few weeks. You watch how much your deltoid shrinks. So this is the thing, like we've all got bodies. Most of us, I imagine on here, have got fully functioning bodies. So literally, you've got to use them in full range as much as you can under some sort of form of tension to give your muscles a reason to stay strong. So what I said earlier about in your 40s, where muscle degeneration happens more rapidly, well, then we need to be more focused on resistance training more than ever, because we want to preserve that muscle mass as best we can. However, what I see, again, like Chloe, you said you hate weights, but I see women still to this day try and shy away from that in their later years. This has come around to your question that you were talking about earlier about what can we do. They shy away from that and they'll go off and run along on hard concrete and wonder why they got knee problems, right? They're off doing marathons and stuff. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but it's not the thing that I would suggest you do if you want to keep healthier bones, more muscle mass for the longevity, and keep your strength throughout life. Because if you lose strength, you get injured. If you get injured, you can't look after your family, you can't work, life sucks, right? So there's all these things. So just going back to what can you do then throughout your life, focus exactly on what I just said: strength train, strength train, strength train. Then also, as we get older, our ability to synthesize protein, in other words, utilization of protein. We need protein, the amino acids in there to repair and rebuild our structures. If we're exercising, we need more of it, right? Because if we haven't got enough of it, we can't rebuild. If we haven't got enough protein in our system, our body will go, okay, I'm going to take protein from our skin, hair, and nails. You become gaunt and your skin looks degenerate, right? Your skin takes that effect. Your hair starts taking that effect, okay? Nails. And then let's face it, ladies, you spend a lot of money on your nails. You spend a lot of money on your hair, and you spend a lot of money on your skin. More than men, especially like me, I need polyfiller. But the thing is, you're spending all this money, but actually what you put in internally is what affects you on the biggest organ in your body, is the skin and the hair and the nails. So you need to get more protein in. So we couple that with regular weight training. You need to increase your protein intake. Most of you probably do, no doubt. All right. You're going to do that with, and I'll talk about that in a second. And it just being consistent with those things. Then when you're in your menopausal years or postmenopausal, still weight train throughout. And I guarantee you probably some days you're not going to feel like it. Make sure your protein's high, but there's other things that you need to do with stress levels and so forth, how to improve your sleep. All right, there's other things you can do with that. Obviously, reducing caffeine and alcohol intake is a big one with that. Trying to find ways of reducing your stress levels in everyday life. Also things like yoga and mindfulness and walking and so forth. In your younger years, probably don't need to worry about that so much. You can get a lot more volume with strength training. But in our later years, I would, and I will not train anyone one-to-one unless they do weight training. I refuse. That's because I just know I can't help them. I can't give them what they really need, and that is to preserve muscle mass. It's like an investment into a pension. You've got to be consistent with it, month in, month out. So it's same with training, and you just got to probably look at what you're doing now. And if you're not doing weight training, 2 to 3 times a week would be your prime focus. You're going to hate it at first, but after a few weeks, you start noticing how your body looks and feels. After a few months, you will never want to do anything else, really. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does, because it's all about switching it up. I mean, I know like a lot of my friends and a lot of people that I work alongside and stuff, they're big runners and running is their main thing. But then I know that some of my clients have come to you as runners with lots of injuries, and you're always talking on the program about we've got to be doing stuff to make sure we can run. You know, weights is so important for that.
Yeah, so you got to look at it, right? People will go and just run. They'll run, but they haven't got the structural strength. In other words, their joints have not got the strength around the joints to support them while they're running. Their running technique is poor. I was saying a story about, I had a lady who was running a 1:58 half marathon. She was doing 4 to 5 runs a week, because the running coaches told her to do it. She was never getting any faster, and she was always getting injured. I pulled her away from all that. She was doing 1 to 2 runs a week and 2 strength sessions per week. She got a 1:39 within 6 months of training. No injuries, a 1:39. That's a dramatic difference, right? So what I'm saying is strength training won't slow you down. Remember, strength equals force production equals speed. So for you to get faster, you have to get stronger, because you have to be able to produce the force. But you can't do these long distance runs without getting some sort of structural abnormalities or pain, unless you are already structurally strong, and you need to do strength training to do that. And obviously you can do it wrong, but if you get the basics right, you usually cover. You also got to look at what I said before, I didn't mention menstrual cycle. So this is another big difference that I've had to really throw myself into. And I know a lot of women don't actually understand the training side of this. Now this is a broad way of looking at it, but some women are different throughout their menstrual cycles. Obviously, you've got your first phase, your menstrual cycle, you've got your middle, your ovulation, and you've got your final phase of it, right? Now, if we just look at the first phase, your follicular phase, okay, you've predominantly got more estrogen in that phase, which basically means you're probably going to be stronger in that phase. Those first 0 to 14 days, you'll be stronger. You probably have less cravings. You'd probably be better at sticking to some form of consistent nutrition because it's more switched on. You're probably happier. So you'll be able to get more volume of training in that. You'll be able to do more strength training, lifting heavier, just be more motivated. Then post-ovulation, estrogen declines, progesterone goes up. And this is where things can go a little bit, as we say, to ratchet, right? Where it can be, and I say that in a nice sense, where because of the switching hormones, balance can be affected. You can be 30, 40, 50% weaker. You can feel heavier. You get more water retention. So what you do then is you can drop your training right down and just do smaller volumes of training just to stay consistent. If you were on some full calorie restrictive diet in your first 2 weeks of your menstrual cycle, then just eat more of a consistent, but increase your calories up, because you're going to be craving in your second phase. So when I work with women on the one-to-one spectrum, I take that into account, and I ask them, I have to be open with them, what's the menstrual cycle like? And they'll tell me, and they'll oh my God, this is it, it's just the worst. And they tell me, and they're like, yeah. And then we just adapt it. So everyone on here, you're probably thinking now, do you know what? Yeah, you are right. Actually, when I go through this part of my menstrual, I feel like this, and my partner runs away. Or, these things happen because it's all down to what's going on. It's not you being a terrible person. It generally is what these hormones are doing in your body. They're doing all sorts of crazy things, and your mind gets affected and your energy levels gets affected. Everything about you does get affected. This is why I admire women when they go and do these weightlifting competitions and how they time these things right. And some of these have to take certain supplements to delay these things. And I don't know honestly how they do it. So there's so many differences, but the beautiful thing about it is with some very simple changes to your nutrition, changes to your training regime, because let's face it, every woman on here has probably said to themselves or to someone else at least once in their lives, I want to feel more toned. And Chloe, you know how I hate that word, because toned means build muscle. And lots of ladies will say to me, I don't want to build muscle, I want to tone. You can't tone a muscle, you can only build a muscle, right? So toned means your body fat reduces and the lean muscle shows, right? So the only way you can become more toned is by some form of consistent strength training and making sure you're increasing your protein intake to rebuild those muscles. Why do you want to rebuild muscle? Why do you want to build muscle? You've got to increase your strength and improve strength throughout your life, because there's nothing worse. And I see it in the clinic all the time. Bless them, ladies coming in between the ages of 40 to 90, terribly weak, scary weak. How some of them can't even put their shoes on for various things. And it's terrifying. But it's very evident when you see ladies that have stayed active their whole lives and changed the way they train and stuff, the difference when I compare the age groups. I look at their lifestyles and it's crazy the difference of what they have. So, but also the metabolic positives of having more muscle mass, because it has it makes your body more efficient at burning and utilizing calories. It has a much more positive effect on hormones. And this is why I flip it when people talk about hormonal diets. if you're overweight, in a sense, you've got a higher level of body fat that's on a healthy range, because it does have metabolic consequences. It does become a metabolic disease. It is, if we got too much body fat, whether you're male or female. So remember, body fat is hormonally active. So therefore, if you get your body fat to a healthy level, your hormones become in more balance, right? So when you talk about, when you see things about, and I see it directed at women all the time, the hormones, you got to eat for this, you got to do this for your hormones. No, if you're obese or you're overweight, this will have a negative effect on your hormones. If you've got seriously low body fat, where a lot of ladies do try and do that and they get their body fat too low, this will have negative effects on your hormones. This will also have an effect on menstrual cycle, reproductive system, digestive system. This will also have effects on the outer layer, your skin, your hair, your nails become very degenerate. So the thing is, you've got to try and keep your body fat at a healthy level for you, to make sure you've got that good metabolic sort of process going on, hormonal process. And then the flip side, making sure that you're training to preserve muscle mass and strengthen your body. And if you could just focus on those things, great, you're on to win it. And just be consistent. It doesn't take hours and hours in a gym. Just take, like, most of the ladies in my group don't go to gyms. They've got a little bit of equipment at home, and they work out consistently with me almost every day. Some of them don't. But if you can do that, or if you do go to the gym, great, but don't do the classes, get and do some strength training. Stop doing these mindless spin classes and get strength training, because the classes should be a stepping stone for strength training. That's how it should be. Because how many ladies have you seen in the same classes, week in, week out, same spot, talking to the same person in the same area, same spin bike, whatever, and they haven't changed? They've never changed, because they're in the same environment week in, week out, and they become the product of that environment. You need to get out of there and get strength training. And any good trainer worth the weight in gold will tell you that, because it's going to change your body more than anything.
That's awesome, James. There's a couple of questions in the chat box, because I want to sort of talk a little bit more about your programs and what we're doing with you. Amy said,
questions out, Chloe.
So yeah, Amy said, when you say early years, because obviously Amy's got 2 girls, do you mean teenage years or early 20s? For example, is it okay to train while you're still growing as a teenager?
100%. And that's another myth, right? Your structural formation, whatever, your growth is predetermined through genetics. However, you can obviously, there's safety protocols in place. It's not going to stunt your growth. That's what you hear all the time. But obviously, as you grow in those early years, you don't want to put too much stress through the joints. Starting off with body weight. If you're a teenager or a youngster that has no idea, go and see a coach, someone who knows what they're doing, and then they can periodize your plan throughout. But no, what you're seeing more so now, and I follow a lot of Olympic weightlifting, and you see these most impressive specimens, males and females. I'm not talking about big, they're just looking beautifully lean and amazing, incredibly strong, but they're also, a lot of them are very tall, and they started in their single years, 8, 9, 10 years old. You look at the Asian cultures now coming through. So yeah, the earlier the better, absolutely. But it doesn't really matter what age you are, you just need to start.
That's awesome, thank you. Lena was asking, just doing body weights count? Because I know, like, we've got our dumbbells and you keep a very careful eye on if we're increasing them. But what about just body weight workouts instead?
Body weight to start off with, and body weight can also be, body weight to start off with. But just remember, and again, I get this question a lot, there's a fear element in that question, isn't there? Because what about body weight? Yeah, that's absolutely fine, but what about weights? So what's the problem with so create that strength element through just doing body weight, perfect your movement. Once you become efficient with that, for your body then to change, you need to change the environment, which increases the stimulus. So then adding some form of resistance. Okay, so using some form of weight training, start off light. And I'm not talking ones and twos, I'm talking, you know, a little bit more weight than that. And then, like I tell all you ladies that in the community that we coach, for you then to get better and better, to keep developing the muscle mass, to keep developing your body, keep getting stronger. You're never going to look like a bodybuilder. You're not. You haven't got the testosterone that men have got, and you're not on performance enhancement drugs. You are not going to do it. So you never need to worry about that. But if you want to change and consistently, or maintain at least, you have to do what's called progressive overload. So from body weight to lightweight to heavier weights to heavier weights to heavier weights that's how it goes. That's progressive overload. Your body needs to be constantly put in a environment that demands change. And that's not a bad thing. Otherwise it becomes boring. If you haven't got a goal in mind, then it just becomes monotonous. It's just the same thing all the time. If you suddenly, and I love seeing ladies in the group, all of a sudden they're picking really heavy weights up and they're in their 60s. I think that's flipping amazing. Because I'm like, yeah, get some of that. Keep getting stronger, because you don't want to get weaker. You really don't want to get weaker.
Yeah, it's amazing how quick you lose it as well. Because obviously when I had my COVID and then this sinus thing, and I didn't work out for about a month, and then I went to do my normal weights, and I was like, like you lose it if you're not using it. Like,
yeah, that's generation in just a short space of time. Think of what it does over a few years or a decade.
Yeah,
and I see it in the clinic. But also, guys, we're talking about bone health. Remember, we have to put resistance through our bones. We have to put a lot of weight through our bones to keep them healthy. It's the way it works. So we put stress through our body, and our body develops to deal with it, but our bones do. But if we're not stimulating muscle mass and putting a lot of resistance through and tension through our bones and ligaments, then our bones will degenerate over time as well. So it's not just muscles, it's bones. So yeah, body weight's great for a certain amount of period, but once you become efficient, then my 20 years experience and knowledge will tell you, they start adding some weights on, and don't be afraid of it. Really don't be afraid of it, because you love the way you feel after just a few weeks of doing it.
Yeah, awesome. Best exercises. So 2 questions really. What's your favorite type of exercise? Because I know you're not, when I said like, oh, I remember I said, I want a butt like Beyonce, but I want a 6-pack. And how should I do sit-ups? And you're like, forget sit-ups. That's another myth. And we do a lot of crunching and stuff. What are your favorite exercises in general, but also one specifically for pelvic floor? Because there's been a bit of a laughing thing in here about trampolining for women, because let's face it, it's a disaster zone for us after kids. So yeah, pelvic floor ones.
So let's have a look. My favorite, So so my favorite exercise is the squat. It is. Right, all the squats. If you can get the squat right, everything else is right. It's just a brilliant exercise. Secondly, pelvic floor. Obviously, pelvic floor is affected by everything. Brushing your teeth with pelvic floor, breathing in and out to your pelvic floor. Obviously, you've got what's called the detrusor muscle, the bladder base. For the pelvic floor is a combination of muscles and structures that are held within deep in the pelvis, and it also holds everything up, stops things coming out. Okay, and it also has effect on sexual health as well as urination and other sort of toilet processes, right? But if there's dysfunction there, then all these things can be affected in a negative way. Likewise, just general movement. And I know so many ladies, they've opened up to me about this. Maybe opened up is the wrong word, but talking about, obviously, you should not have leaking when you're walking or coughing or sneezing. It should not happen. If so, you should go and see some form of pelvic health specialist. I know there's a lady you guys know that's meant to be very good. So something like that. I know in America, I think they have a pelvic health physios, but in the UK, there are them. So outsource that, because they really understand that. However, through pelvic floor, you do have certain breathing intense exercise they teach you, but one thing's for sure, you don't want to constantly activate those muscles, because they can then become weak. So like the drawing in, the squeezing. So those sort of movements that you can do them to brace before you do a certain exercise, like a squat or a lunge. Just understanding when you do them is drawing in that navel and squeezing from within while you're doing a certain movement. That might help you. Jumping, for a lot of ladies in my group, a lot of them are fine with them. Many of them aren't. So therefore, jumping is out the question. So maybe that's just the thing. That's why I say to ladies, if you can't do them, just do what you can while we're doing those movements. But the thing is with pelvic floor, it's such a problem because there is so many different things that can affect them, whether it's a natural birth, whether it's cesarean, injury, trauma, and also into menopausal years due to the estrogen decline. This too can have an effect on pelvic floor, whether you've had children or not. There's so many reasons why it affects you. There's also lots of degrees in that. But what I would say to everyone, rather than me just waffle a load of exercises because there's thousands, what you should do is if you do have any sort of constant heaviness or leakage in any way through whether you laugh and sneeze and whatever, if that's happening and you can't jump, you need to go and outsource to a pelvic health specialist, because if you do, they can probably give you some really good advice. That's what I would advise.
It's funny, we're just laughing.
They are there.
Thank you, darling. That's so interesting because we're just laughing about the jumping jacks, actually, as the girls.
I will give them to people to do. Yeah. I mean, the messages I get afterwards are quite funny, but I just tell people, like, unless you give them a go, you just don't know.
Yeah, I'm just always so grateful that I'm in the privacy of my home and you can't hear me and I'm not in the gym with you, because I just could never look you in the eyes ever again. But it's funny what you said about estrogen though, because I've noticed during my cycle there's a blip of a few days where I'm like, oh, where I'm not quite as good with my pelvic floor as I should be. But and then I've started realizing since working out with you, I'm like, it must be cyclical. It must be during my cycle, because there's a few days when I work out with you and I'm like, there's something not quite right here. And it must be that estrogen change.
That's usually probably ovulation, post-ovulation, so 14 days upwards. That's where the flip goes to more progesterone, and that's what I say, where you may become a lot weaker, energy levels plummeting, cravings going up, more erratic behavior maybe. You know, all these things can happen.
I think that's just me though, James.
But it's perfectly normal, and that's where you then got to go, okay, I don't have the energy to do things like HIIT training or other type of thing, but maybe I can just do some 1 or 2 weight sessions at lighter weight and just go through it that way, just to keep you maintained, and maybe up your calories a little bit just to keep your energy levels up. This is where you've got to really look at your say your 4 weekly cycle, or 3.5 week, or 4.5 week, whatever you go through. That's where you got to look at it and go, actually, those 2 weeks I'm at loose end there. This is where I've got to change things.
I think you're winning quite a few fans here, James. Like I'm like Jeanette, who she said, God, I think he knows more about my cycle than I do.
Well,
it's so true. I
don't know Jeanette's cycle, but if she wants to talk about it, we could get back into it.
I guess we're all thinking, gosh.
All I know is that.
What lovely boyfriend material you must make, James. Such a sensitive guy, knowing all about this thing with cycle.
Yeah.
No, again, cycles seem to be quite a big thing. Sorry, James, but so a couple that kind of overlap is, what kind of things can we do to work out during our cycle without feeling uncomfortable? And I know that's sort of for me as well. I get quite a lot of cramping and stuff, self-conscious and giving us the motivation to do it. But then equally for the people that are on things like the coil or maybe certain birth control and stuff, what happens if you don't even know where you are in your cycle and things like that? What are the best sorts of ways to approach exercise? I mean, I'd just say.
From what I don't know, if you don't know where you are in your cycle, I think if you go from initial bleed to ovulation, you kind of can work out where you are with that cycle. I would imagine so. So obviously, if you can just look at from the point of the bleed onwards, go 4 weeks from there, you kind of work it out from there. It's usually about between 35 and 45 days, maybe 28 to 35 days, depending on what age you are, whether you're in perimenopause or not. These are the things that you've got to understand as well. You said a question about becoming more comfortable. Now, obviously, breast pain is a big one for a lot of ladies. So you make sure you've got good sports bras. That's a big one. Good sports bras, that's for sure. If you're working out in a gym, then it's also about clothing wise, how you feel in your clothing. That's a big one. That's why I say don't go to a gym if you're subconscious. You just work out at home with me and the ladies. But if you have got like, tell you if it's things like cramps, from what I understand, a lot of times the cramps is that you probably either haven't got a lot of salt in your body, or sodium, or you haven't had any food that morning before training. That's another one. So that could be it.
Yeah, we're all having a bit of a laugh about the emergency banana. We all have to now have our emergency bananas for when we're doing our workouts.
Yeah, so a lot of ladies tend to think that they can do high intensity or weight training without any food in them. I don't know. I know you ladies are superheroes, but I don't know where you get that from. I seem to always say it, that when you feel weak through training, it's because generally you haven't had enough food. Okay. It's a bit like driving a car. You can't do anything unless you've got some food in you. Yeah. But unfortunately, when you're on your menstrual cycle, you do, every one of you on this call now really needs to try and work that out. I think there is a really good app called Clue, is it? There's lots of apps that you can do to track your menstrual cycle as well, and self-analysis and trying to understand how you're feeling through those phases, writing them down, journaling. And these are things that I've tried with my ladies that I've coached before, get them to journal how they're feeling throughout these phases, and then you can work it out. Once you understand that, then you can adapt a training protocol and nutritional regime around that. Also, weighing yourself. Women weigh themselves daily. This is crazy. And also, you should, if you are going to weigh and measure yourself, weigh it according to your menstrual cycle phase. You know, with the progesterone's higher, you're probably going to be heavier. You could be 7 or 8 pounds more leading up to ovulation as well, heavier due to fluid retention. You know, so there's things that you've got to consider.
Yeah, thanks so much, James. It's so interesting. So I want to touch upon what you're doing, because obviously you have the clinic, you go to the gym, you have your one-to-one coaches, but being all the way over in Wales, and like some of us are down in Kent, we can't just pop along to the gym. So you set up the online training program, which, guys, it's £9.99 a month. Like, when I tell people, they're like, sorry, a week, and I'm like, no, a month. It's incredible.
Oh yeah, I set that up just to help. That was initially just to help women through lockdown. Really, I had a few, but then I didn't realize how popular it was. And actually, now it's just a nice little community that we work out and we do weights and we do HIIT training in only 30-minute sessions. But where you lead into in your question was what I'm doing now, and this is why I think it's very relative to everyone on the call. I set up a clinic in the Bay that's part of the chiropractic center. And we've got therapists as well. And really, we've got a machine in there that's worth over £100,000, one of the few machines that's worth that much. It's a machine that targets bone mineral density, and it's crazy. And for years, I was taught that you couldn't improve bone mineral density later on in life. You actually can if you put enough pressure. It's called Wolff's Law. And we use a machine that does 4 different movements, but you're actually not actually moving, you're pushing into a plate, and your joints at an angle of 120 degrees. And what this does, it's a safe, non-pharmaceutical way of improving bone mineral density. Now, that, as opposed to, we also do movement and strength training, nutritional analysis, body, all this sort of stuff. But what this is relative is, I work very much on the process of preserving muscle mass and preserving bone mineral density or rebuilding it. So now what everyone on this community can do to help themselves is just go and start strength training, improving their nutrition, getting more calcium in their bodies, getting more quality sources of protein, getting some more nutrition. 2 things that you need to focus on: strength training and eating more of a whole food nutritious diet. If you can do those 2 things, you are generally going to really look after yourself and help yourself better and make yourself feel better. We talk about hormones all the time. Food is mood. If you're eating the wrong food, that's going to significantly impact your mood and your temperament. You know it, we all know it, and we talk about everything other than what's really important, but it's the hardest one to adapt. It's the nutrition side of it. If you can get that right, if you can feed your gut microbiome and your gut health, because your gut is your sort of second brain. If you can do that, then that's a really great start. And then if you can strength train as well, then the positive feel and the consequence and just the general physicality of it all is the benefit that you need.
Thanks, Hun. I've posted your link to your program. So, but guys, what we do is James offers 2 programs for us. It's 20 past 6 and then 10 past 7, isn't it? So, yeah. So we, so we would, so there's 2 different programs, and it mixes between 10 different types during the week. So for me, I do the 10 past 7 because I do a team call before that. So Monday it's weights, Tuesday was ninja workout, then it's weights again on a Wednesday for me. Thursday is Tabata, which is like really high intensity, fast paced, proper sweat till you die. And then Friday is weights, and then it flips out for the earlier classes. So then that's 3 with box fit on a Friday. So they're absolutely amazing. So you can literally pick and choose what you do. And what I love about it, and I'm sure some of the girls on here can type what they love about it, but with us being so busy, you get on at 10 past 7 and by 7:40, I'm done for the day. 30 minutes, you give it all you've got. And this is what James is saying about, I don't want to go to the gym. I don't have 2 hours to go down there. I don't want to drive there, park the car, all of that. I can be on at 9 minutes to 7, or a bit earlier, James, give it 9 minutes past, and you're done in 31 minutes, ready to have a shower and do the school run. And it's just ace. And you get them all recorded as well, so you can catch up. But he's coaching you. So I know, James, you posted the other day about some people are really nervous about being on a shared group call. Trust me, all you do is you have James on the screen. You don't see anybody else. Nobody's watching you. It's you and James. And he'll help you on your technique. He motivates you. And for me, I can't do a recording because I'll get to 20 minutes, not be able to breathe and be like, oh, I'm getting off. But knowing that James is on the other side being like, nobody get off, everybody stay on, we're going to do the last minute finisher and all this. You're on, you're accountable, and you're all in it together, which is fab. So I absolutely love mine. Jenny's saying she loves the consistency, how she feels afterwards. Never did this before. Amy loves the progression of the strength training as the week goes on. 30 minutes is so doable. I'm done, showered before the kids have even got up. All about the consistency. Yeah, I mean, it's an amazing group, isn't it?
I think with anyone though, even if it's not, if they don't want to join my group, I think if what everyone on the call, and I ask this to everyone, I always say that we do exercise for the wrong reasons. We do exercise to burn calories and all this, or we burn fat. It doesn't work like that. And I've been teaching you guys about this. You don't go to exercise to burn calories and burn fat, because it simply doesn't work like that. Yeah, you're burning some calories, and probably most people are burning what they've eaten the day before anyway. They're not actually burning body fat. So when you go to train, you're training to strengthen your body, build muscle, and improve your cardiovascular fitness. It's your nutrition that will help aid you in reducing body fat. Those two, that's what you've got to understand. There's a stimulus, and then there's either a surplus or a deficit with your food. That's what we've got to do. But we've got to get into our heads that we're a species that is designed to walk great distances, run great distances, throw, fight, swim, crawl, climb. Yeah. We are not a species that's designed to eat 3, 4, 5 times a day with snacks and sit down watching Netflix for 5 hours after sitting down for 8 hours doing work in the office. We're not designed to do that. Our body craves movement all the time. We may not think it, but it does. So we need to get into that. We need to look at our day and prioritize a little chunk of that day at least, or a couple of times a day, where we prioritize exercise and movement, because our body needs it. It craves it. Structurally, we need it. And we need to do it for another right reasons, because we love ourselves enough. We don't hate ourselves. We love ourselves and we respect ourselves to exercise every single day. And you won't be sorry for it. Just make it non-negotiable action. Doesn't matter what age you are, you just got to do it. And that's the fact. And there's no point in snowflaking it and wait and blaming the government, wait and blaming the NHS and all this, and waiting for them to tell us to do it. We've got to do it. It's just the way it is.
Yeah.
You know.
It's amazing. I've learned so much tonight, James. Thank you so much. I'm excited to send this recording out to people. So appreciate everybody else coming on tonight and for all your questions and stuff as well. It's great. So I've shared your link, but I'll be sure to get it in the group for everyone as well. But yeah, I mean, take on board what James said, resistance training, you know, strength training, no matter what age, and have a look at James's program.
It doesn't matter what age. It doesn't matter what age. Yeah, just saying, it doesn't matter what age you are. It really doesn't. You just got to do it. And, you know, seek advice. Go and see someone that you think knows or qualified, and don't worry. You will never be judged. You will not look back. I've never worked with a female client in the last, say, 10 years has ever wanted to go back and do what they were doing before, because they've seen the change in their bodies. Doesn't matter what age they are. Strength train. Prioritize more about your nutrition, look after your health more, and you'll have a happier, longer life. You generally will.
Absolutely amazing, James. There's, like I said in my post, you know, there's nothing you don't know about fitness and things like that. So really appreciate you giving that advice.
I try.
No, you're a fab. Thank you so much, darling. I really appreciate it. And some of us will be seeing you at 6:20 and 7:10.
Yay, let's do it. Own the day.
Thank you so much.
See you
Loads
later.
of love to you. Thanks,
Cheers, guys.
everybody.
Thank you.
Cheers. Bye,
Yeah.
guys. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.